fields are breathing slow. There's a mother calling softly for the child she came to know. We took her milk, we took her baby, called it custom, called it need. But the earth remembers every bond we break to feed our greed. Bring the cows back to their mothers, bring the milk back to the young. Let no baby be taken before their life's begun. Bring them home.
I would like to introduce our panelists of Sanctuary panelists, Renee King-Sonnen and Pattrice Jones and Melissa Martel. Thank you for being here today. I would like to share. We have two new people to our community today. Pattrice, I know so many people know of you and never, ever yet had the honor of meeting you, even though it's virtual. And Melissa is in a sanctuary very close to myself. And so I'm going to introduce our panelists here. Thank you. So Renee King-Sonnen was the wife and partner of a former rancher and is the founder and executive director of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. I know she just finished a book that she's going to be really excited to talk about. A nonprofit company that promotes a sanctuary to farm animals at the risk of being slaughtered, which I think Renee will tell us a bit more about that. Through her rancher advocacy and family choosing compassion program, she inspires ranchers and future farmers to consider alternatives to animal farming. We're really excited also to hear about your upcoming book. I think it might have just been released, Renee. Pattrice Jones is an ecofeminist, writer, scholar, and activist who, along with Miriam Jones, co-founder of Vine Sanctuary, has a farmed animal sanctuary. I had just been taught, it was Anita actually from PlantBased Treaty who recommended that we contact for this gathering Pattrice. She says, you have to meet Pattrice. And she showed me a book, Aftershock, Confronting Trauma in a Violent World. Anita said she uses this daily. It's a guide for activists and their allies. And so many people here are so excited that you're here, Pattrice, so thank you. Melissa Martel is the founder of Farm Animal Rescue and Rehoming Movement, Farm Sanctuary, near Wetaskiwin, Alberta. She began this movement in response to the growing number of abused and abandoned potbelly pigs, but farm scope has since expanded to embrace other farm animals. And I know Melissa's moving her sanctuary a little bit closer to my home so I can spend more time there supporting and being part of that. So thank you all. Renee is going to lead this panel and I will let you take it away, Renee.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tammy. And it's so great to be here amongst all of you. I can't wait to find your book, Pattrice. It sounds very intriguing. Yeah, so as the founder of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, I started this sanctuary just, because I actually went crazy on a cattle ranch. So a lot of people ask me all the time, how to start a sanctuary. Well, nobody told me that one of the requirements was that I would lose my mind before I ever saw the sentience of these cows that we were sending to slaughter. And the way that I finally saw that was through Rowdy Girl, a mother that had babies, eventually at Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. But she was a baby, a little child herself when I first met her. And I never had any children of my own. So whenever I first met Rowdy Girl, it was because my husband was wanting me to get more involved in the cattle ranching world. And I wasn't interested. I was from Texas, meat eating cowboy, cowgirl with loved rodeos and all that. I wasn't interested though in cattle ranching. And I just wanted to do my thing, promote music, write music, do the stuff. And when he came home one day and told me about these babies that needed a mama, um, something kind of hit my heart. And I wanted to go see those babies. So I went to see the babies, and one of them was Rowdy Girl. And as soon as she came out, b- kicking her little heels with a little white heart on her head, I said to myself, "Oh my God, aren't you a little rowdy girl?" And from that moment on, she became my daughter. And she was a bovine. And I had never nurtured a baby calf to become grown. I'd never done that before. I bought the other one too. Her name was named her Bobo, but she died within just a couple of weeks because she never got her mother's colostrum. But somehow Rowdy Girl thrived, and that began my relationship through the years of finally learning to see the sentience and the motherhood of all those other cows that were in our at our farm. Through her, when I was bottle feeding her, she was feeding me something else spiritually. And she was feeding me something I'd never seen before. I was able to see with real eyes who the rest of the herd was through her. I began to watch the mamas and their babies. I began to watch how the mothers would choose a babysitter to take care of their children. And I began to see things in a whole different way through her. It took me about 5 years to open my eyes completely and go crazy. I didn't even know I was going vegan the day I went vegan. But, it was a culmination of things because when you're oppressed, when you're on a cattle ranch and you're a cattle rancher's wife, you live in a state of oppression every day. You never ever even consider the thought of going vegan on a cattle ranch. It's not something you even ponder in the cattle ranching world. So, I had to pretty much lose my mind, and that's what happened. And Rowdy Girl is the catalyst, for all that. But I know that I just wanted to just do that brief introduction, and I would love to, first of all, hear from Patrice because I know Patrice, I think you have a hard stop, and so if you would just tell us a little bit about your work and how you got into it, and I would love to hear from you, and I know the rest of the those listening would too.
Well, thank you, Renee, and thanks to the organizers of this event for inviting me. I've been thinking really hard about, well, as Sinead O'Connor once sang, these are dangerous days. And so I've been thinking a lot about what would be helpful for folks attending this convergence to hear in the present context. And I thought, well, okay, I'll share with you some of the things that I've learned from animals at the sanctuary that might be helpful in the current context. But before I do that, I do have to introduce Vine. Vine, which stands for both veganism is the next evolution and veganism is not enough, is an LGBTQ-led farmed animal sanctuary. We celebrated our 25th anniversary last year. We started as a tiny uh, sanctuary for chickens, literally surrounded by factory farms in Maryland back in 2000. We're now in Vermont because we moved up here in order to be able to expand to take in survivors of dairying. So now there are also lots of cows, as well as goats, sheep, the geese, ducks, emus, and many people I'm sure I'm forgetting to mention. We're probably best known as the first sanctuary to figure out how to rehabilitate roosters used in cockfighting. We're also known as a sanctuary that was founded by queer and disabled people who were social justice activists for decades before starting the sanctuary. And so we've always incorporated what might be called an intersectional or multifaceted approach to our work. And we do a lot of things very, 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 very queerly. We think of the sanctuary as a multi-species community that is co-created by our non-human community members, and we do everything that we can to respect the dignity and self-determination of our non-human community members, to see them as peers rather than as youngsters under our care. We always take great care never to use juvenile terms for adult animals. Um, and another thing that we do queerly, before I get into what I've learned from animals, is we run an annual Pride Month vegan challenge, which is sort of like Veganuary, but a whole lot more colorful. The theme is Eat the Rainbow, and anybody can sign up because it's for LGBTQ plus people, but also their friends and family, which is everybody. Especially if you've had a hard time convincing people to go vegan, try and send one person to rainbowvegan.org to sign up to Eat the Rainbow this June and get all sorts of advice, support, inspiration, etc. All right, what have I learned from animals that might be helpful to attendees of this convergence in the current context of escalating climate change, escalating fascism, escalating warfare, and escalating terror? Well, first, that context itself is essential. I mentioned that we were the first sanctuary to rehabilitate fighting roosters. This we were able to do because we realized that the aggressive behavior of roosters in cockfighting rings was not due to any internal aggressiveness, as the cockfighters would have you believe, but in fact because they were terrified by the context of being raised outside of flocks, never able to learn the social cues that roosters use to keep the peace among themselves, raised without their mothers, raised in a constant state of deprivation and fear, and then tossed into a clamoring ring with people shouting and an armed opponent. And so they fight to the death, not because they're aggressive, but because they're terrified. The very same birds, given nurturing care and the opportunity to learn what they missed, live peacefully in our flocks and may even be peacekeepers themselves. It's all a matter of context. And this is true for people too. Humans right now are terrified. Whether they know it or not, humans are terrified. Climate change, whether people believe in it or not, has reshaped our habitat, this planet. And whether or not we are consciously aware of it, our bodies know this. Our bodies know that the weather is different. And we also are exposed to a constant stream of news about disasters, whether they be floods or hurricanes or wildfires that kill 1 billion animals in a couple of weeks. Our bodies are in a constant state of high alert. What do humans do when they are scared? Fight, flight, freeze. And one of the ways so they get either more aggressive or they look for some strong man who will save them. And this is why we see this upsurgence of totalitarianism around the world. And it keeps us from doing anything about climate change, which then gets worse. And the totalitarians make more war. And so all of our bodies are more scared. Take it from me, who has spent a lot of time with terrified animals. Terrified animals don't think very clearly, don't make good decisions. So One of the things I'm here to tell you is that you can create sanctuary too. Sanctuary is one of the antidotes to terror. Yeah, all three of us, we create formal farmed animal sanctuaries for survivors of the millennial long war against animals. But you can create a sanctuary in your own backyard. You can create a refuge for wild birds. You can create a refuge for the raccoons and other animals who are treated as trash by other people. You can create sanctuary for other humans. However hard it might be for you to feel empathy when you're aware of the things that humans do to animals, the fact is that most humans are themselves terrified animals. And so anything that we can do to turn down the heat, to help people feel safe, is going to help in the long run and in the short run with all of these problems that are vexing us right now. You can be a sanctuary for other people by becoming a safe person, by listening, by extending empathy, by helping. And I'll tell you what, if you do this in your own community, it'll have knock-on effects. I'll just tell you two things in our community, neither of which are formally related to Vine. The organizers of our official town MLK Day celebration decided to make it vegan. We had vegan versions of MLK's favorite desserts. I know because I know the people who decided it, that our work over the years creating safety here at the sanctuary, but also helping to make our town a safer place by volunteering at the library and volunteering with the inclusion committee helped lead to that. Speaking of the library, our small town library its board of trustees just passed what we think is the first in the nation default veg policy for a public library. Which once we've tried it out, the library will share with other libraries. Creating sanctuary is useful in and of itself, but also has knock-on effects. And of course, it's so useful for animals. Since we were talking about mothers, I can't help but mention Rose and Autumn, who were among the first survivors of dairying to come to us. Again, with context, Rose came to us. She was 9-ish. I don't know how many calves had been taken from her. She seemed like a very shy person in comparison to Autumn, who I'll tell you about in a moment. Um, she was very quiet and just sort of followed Autumn around. But then about 6 months later, she started playing practical jokes on us. Turned out she's hilarious. She was depressed by her context, and once her context changed, her real personality was able to come out. And before I move on, I just have to give a shout out to Autumn, who arrived when she was 12 years old, having had 9 calves taken from her. But she was not beat down. She looked us right in the eye. And she was a force. Here at the sanctuary, she lived to be 23. And she twice adopted calves who came to the sanctuary after being discarded by dairies, male calves. And she was also the universally regarded leader of what we call the commons, which is an area that has cows, sheep, goats, and lots of other people as the leader. And I mean universally, I mean we recognize her as the leader as well. I learned so much from Autumn, and today's talk is dedicated to her. Now, she, as I said, looked us right in the eye. So another thing that I've learned, and she's not the only one, other mothers, Jan, who jumped a beef yard fence to have her cow in the forest, always looked us right in the eye. And what she was looking at us was like, who are you and what are you going to do to me? Or, what kind of animal are you? Yeah, because we say humans are animals, but oftentimes our own speciesism makes us think that we're not.
Mhm.
And so one thing I've learned from being looked at by animals is to ask, well, what kind of animal am I? What kind of animals are we? By the way, if you ever come to the sanctuary, we're not going to let you walk around staring at the animals. We're going to put you to work, and the animals will stare at you for at least an hour while you contribute your labor. And then you can have a tour after you've been stared at by animals. Um, and they're asking, who are you? What kind of animal are you? I don't have time to say all the things that humans are, but what I can tell you is that we are not the super smart thinking machines that we pretend to be. Context, material context helps to guide our behaviors, and emotion is put down by, just like animals, just like females. Emotion is considered negative, a weakness, and that can lead us as activists to ignore emotion. We can, as activists, try to argue people into veganism, try to argue people into doing what they need to do about climate. And then we ask, well, why aren't they doing what we say? It's also logical, because people aren't thinking machines. People have emotions, and people are shaped by their environment. So we have to pay attention to both of those things. And if we do, we can get somewhere.
Right.
Now, among the just quickly, the other two other things I really wanted you to learn. One, last night, 100 hens arrived at the sanctuary. They're currently in quarantine. They came from an egg installation here in Vermont. And that made me remember one of the most important things I ever learned from animals, which is what I learned from the very first hens we took in from a battery farms. They came in, they were almost completely naked, no feathers, scrawny. They didn't even look like birds. They looked like monsters. And they didn't know what to do because they'd been in cages their whole lives. So when we brought them into the barn, they just slumped together in a corner of a barn. They didn't even know how to walk. So we put food and water at some distance from them, leading out the door. They stayed slumped for a while, but the next morning, a few birds took a few steps. They found water. They took a few more steps. They found food. They took a few steps. They found the outdoors. Within a week, they were the wildest birds among us. And I thought to myself, what in the world gave them the hope of what made them walk? Well, it wasn't hope. Nothing in their life had taught them to hope for something better, but their muscles impelled them to take a walk. Their muscles impelled them to take steps, and they discovered something new. And so that's when I learned that hope is not a feeling. It's an action. And you can create the feeling of hope by doing things, Don't wait to feel hope. If they had waited to feel hope, they'd still be slumped in that barn.
That's right.
So hope is something we do. Finally, how can you get the energy to do the things? First, among the first ducks to come to the sanctuary were rescued from a foie gras factory. Two of them, Jean-Paul and Jean-Claude. I don't have the time to tell you the whole story, but they were boyfriends, but we didn't realize it, and I kept thinking that their sex was fighting, and so I kept separating them. But one of them, he just kept taking treks from one yard to another, going over fences and through woods and down the street to get back to his boyfriend, until the ape finally figured out that it was sex, not fighting. And then they were together for their whole lives. Not monogamous, because ducks, but they slept together every night. They hung out together every day. And when I asked myself, how did this duck have the power, the courage to climb fences and walk through woods and down a road just to get back to his boyfriend. I thought, well, that's, the same thing that allows us queer people to keep on coming together, even when the law disallows it, even when there's the death penalty for it. And what I'm saying is that we all, every one of us, have that same wish, that same power, that wish for relationship is part of being a social animal, and everybody here has it. It's your source of sustainable energy, but everybody whose behavior you hope to change also has it. Everyone is longing for better relationships. And so, if you can find a way to call to that, then maybe you'll have some better success. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for listening. Sorry if I went over.
Oh, Patrice, I just could listen to you all, for an hour or so. Loved your enthusiasm and your wisdom, and the way you portrayed the emotion behind what you've learned from animals. It was very touching, and I got it. One of the things I just want to say is, some things I've learned from animals before we bring on Melissa is, you know, there's so many stories. I mean, we have 70 cows out here right now. We have a total of about 140 animals. And, over the last 11 years that Rowdy Girl Sanctuary has been a nonprofit, they have taught me way, way more than any people have ever have. And so, one of the ones that sticks out really vivid in my mind is a cow named Muley. And Muley was a beautiful mother. But, unfortunately, she had her babies taken away from her time and time again when we were a cattle ranch. And, she never got to keep her kids. And when we were here at Rowdy Girl in our new location in Welder, Texas, this little calf found its way in our pasture with an umbilical cord still attached to it. And we know not where this little baby came from. It was a little white calf, little male calf. And we don't know if somebody threw it over the fence. We don't know how it got there. All we know is we had this little baby that needed a mother. And so we started bottle feeding little Jetto. We named him Jetto. And as we would bottle feed Jetto, little Muley got very interested in Jetto. Muley did. And Muley started taking little Jetto under her wing. And Jetto started thinking Muley was her mom or his mom. It was the most beautiful relationship. As we would continue to bottle feed Jetto, Muley was like becoming a surrogate mother to Jetto. It was the most beautiful sight to behold. And
Isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when Autumn adopted her calves, my heart just burst. My
Yeah.
heart just burst.
And up until the day that happened for about, I don't know, I guess Muley and Jetto were a bonded pair for about 2 years. And then when Muley passed away, because she was very old, she passed away when she was about 23, 24 years old. Um, Jetto mourned her like nobody's business and would lay on top of her grave for a long, long time. So, that I mean, what they teach me is, oh my God, you know, um, another one is, of course, gosh, agape. Agape never, ever, ever had any children that she got to keep until the very end. When we became a sanctuary, she got to keep two of her children. But man, she was the defender when we used to send baby calves to the sale barn, and this was before I was a vegan. This was when I was still a cattle rancher's wife. I used to watch her defend the calves going to the sale barn like she was the matriarch of the herd. She would charge you, she would fight you, and she got really, I mean, she had this really furrowed brow because she was so upset all the time that all the mothers were having their babies taken. And she was the one that was the big defender. She would fight to the death.
Yeah.
And do you know, when we became a sanctuary, Agape gently started softening. It took a long time. She went blind and she began to need our care really need us. And so she went into our special needs pasture. And when she was in our special needs pasture, we got to slowly get to know her and get close to her and eventually love her. She let us in her world. She finally softened, her brow softened. We got to love her, and she knew she was loved. And she knew her children were good in the herd.
Yeah.
And on the day that we had to put her down, I wept over her when we had to put her down. And the last chapter of my book is dedicated to Agape and Rowdy Girl, actually. But yeah, I would just briefly say before we bring Melissa on, I would say that my book, Rowdy Girl: Confessions of a Vegan Cattle Rancher, was in the making for the last 5 years. It will publish on June the 25th from Bloomsbury, who published the Harry Potter series. And right now it is available for pre-order on Amazon, Bloomsbury, Barnes and Noble, and also another one, I think Bookstop or Bookshop. So I'm very, very honored that these animals have insisted that I write this book. It was not like something I just decided to do. I was propelled to write this book so that my story and the things, all the trauma that happened to me, the sexual abuse, the domestic violence, all the things that happened to me, I relate it all to the animals and what I've learned from them. I can't do it in 15 minutes. I
Yeah.
hope you get the book. And we hope that it really, really changes the way people look at animals. And so without further ado, I'd love to bring on the amazing, Melissa. Melissa, I've not really heard much about your sanctuary, and I'm looking so forward to hearing more from you.
Hey, you know what? That's okay. I have no idea how I landed here with you two amazing humans, but someone somewhere was looking out for us and wanted, our animals and our story to be heard as well. And I'm just incredibly thankful for that. And just all the things, how good it feels when you go to like a vegan restaurant and all of a sudden like you have this menu in front of you and like every single thing you can eat. You don't have to like pick and choose and land on fries every single time. And that's just like how I feel being a part of this panel right now. Is I have these people in front of me who are fighting the same fights. They're crying over the same things. They're speaking about the same topics and the struggles and the stories. And as much as we're all so different, we have these commonalities. And I've just everything that you're saying between the two of you. It's like, yes, I hear both of you. First off, I have to say, I don't know what it is, but every single person that I've met and all the sanctuaries that I know of and I've interacted with are queer-led sanctuaries. Myself, where is this coming from? This is a phenomenon. Honestly, it has to be studied, and I don't know if it's just we're all special types of people that have been through and know what it feels like to feel different or feel looked over and not be seen in the same way that we find our farm animals are. But somebody needs to study this because it is a legitimate thing that is happening. I could name 4 or 5 sanctuaries, including one very close to me, and we're all queer-led, and it's incredible, and I'm so thankful for that representation. So like Patrice had mentioned early on, just sitting and trying to think, what can I say here that might resonate, that people maybe need to hear? And I want to tell all the stories, and I want to do everybody justice. But last minute, I've kind of just changed my mind. And what I really want to speak on is how I have changed. 13 going on 14 years, I've been running this farm animal sanctuary in the Canadian version of Texas, Alberta cattle country, very similar mindsets. And I think it's really important for me to speak on how much I've changed as a person and how I lead the conversations that I'm having. Patrice, you're exactly right. There's so much trauma in this world. There's so much anger. There's hatred. We're going through this time right now that is so uncertain for so many people. And, I used to be the angry vegan standing on the corner screaming at people to change everything and do better. And I'm not that person anymore. I have all this anger and this frustration inside of me, because we all want these big changes. We see the love, we see the compassion, we see the strength in our animals, and we want everyone to see them that way. And it is so difficult not to scream and yell and be angry. But one thing that has resonated with me so much is my partner and I had been seeing a relationship counselor. You know, we're running a farm sanctuary. It's the most difficult thing in the world. Of course, there's turbulence. And that advice that they gave us, because we were struggling to communicate with one another, is, what if you just assumed that the person that you're speaking with, you know, my partner, the audience that's coming to our tours, don't assume that they're making these conscious choices out of malice, and out of, you know, not caring, that they're making conscious efforts that allow animals to suffer. What if you approach the conversations without hostility, and you start from a place where of learning, and you don't bring that anger to the table. And so the reality of, you know, of the struggle as animal advocates is that people need to like me. They need to feel safe with me. I am the one trying to speak for our animals and say words where they're not able, and bring them to a place where they're also being vulnerable, and they're being forced to look at themselves and decide what kind of person they want to be and how they want to receive the information that I'm trying to give. And if people don't feel comfortable with me, they're not going to hear the things that I'm saying. We all have an uphill battle to fight. Like, let's be very honest. People hate vegans. They love to hate vegans. And I think that's just the side of vegans of where we are all so much struggling. And that comes out in ways that maybe isn't representing our best self and our intentions. And really, there's just a disconnect there. And my job, for me, and my mindset has changed so much over the years, in that I'm not going to scream and yell at people anymore. I just want to try to make that connection. So when people are visiting our sanctuary, you know, for Mother's Day, we've had to cap it because we have so many people interested in coming and sharing space with us on Mother's Day. My job is going to be, how can I make a connection? How can I talk about the injustices of mothers, of farm animals in general, and make space and bring to the table a place for people to feel empathy and to start to develop that on their own. They don't need me to tell them. The animals need to show them. They need to show up. They need to be compassionate individuals, and all the animals do is they show kindness. And it doesn't matter if they have suffered through the most incredible horrors and evil in this world. They don't carry that with them. There's still, every person that comes up to them, they're going to love, they're going to, you know, accept, and we just need to get people to do the same. And I do find that over the years, if I can connect with people and I can show that parallel between what an animal has gone through, and what a human has gone through, that there is that universal suffering, and those feelings are very real. For our non-human mothers, you know, the miscarriages, the stress, the trauma, the loss of babies, the separation of children, being raised in an unstable environment. These are universal truths for humans. And I think when we're able to just have a space that is accepting of people, non-judgmental, that they're able to receive this information, and that has served me really well over the years. You know, time and time again, we have people that have come out with absolutely no intent really to change their lifestyle. They just, you know, they see an opportunity to interact with farm animals, and they never have before. And, you know, here we are, opening the door and allowing them to do that. And, you know, they don't show up with that intent to go vegan or vegetarian or make life changes. You know, but then years later, months later, days later, after a tour, after meeting our animals, you know, they're messaging us and saying, hey, you know what, I stopped eating chicken because of this, or I don't eat eggs anymore. And it's just these small little catalysts. And we really do. We have to be the catalyst. People are here. And, you know, again, if we approach the conversations without making assumptions that people don't want to change and they're intentionally doing these behaviors, that maybe we just need to be that catalyst that gets something thinking inside of their mind, and that kindness and that compassion is there, and that ability to relate is there. Everybody loves cats and dogs. No one is going to tolerate the suffering of cats and dogs. It's because they're known to them. Most people don't have the opportunity to meet farm animals, and all they have to go off of is the stories that are being told by animal agriculture, and it's a very different image, and that's all people know. So until they have that other side of the story, that's where they're at, and I just keep finding that as long as I'm meeting people in this place, our animals are going to speak for themselves, and they are going to come full circle. It is very, very dangerous just having a single story. We all know that there's always two sides to every story, and our animals are able to tell theirs, and I think it just speaks leaps and bounds to the power in just creating that gentle space where people can learn on their own accord, and I don't need to be in their face presenting these what we know is hard facts, but we just need to be gentle about it, and that's how I approach it. I know not everybody agrees. We're obviously our own people. We all run our sanctuaries very differently, but I have found over the years that those things worked for me. So I do want to share one kind of funny story, because I know that this is just an incredibly heavy topic. We have 4 cows in care right now. 2 of them are Holsteins, born early, obviously taken away from their mothers as a byproduct of the dairy industry, which we all know and love. But we also have a third cow named Everett, and he is, I just call him our big potato. He's a little chunky. He loves to eat, but he has an incredibly funny story. So there is this husband-wife. They run a cattle farm, beef, and every year, routine, they're sending their cattle to auction where they inevitably go for slaughter. And a couple of years ago, the wife reached out to us, and she basically said, "Hey, I have this cow. I absolutely love this cow. He is just a sweetheart, and I can't bear to send him to slaughter." And she's like, would you guys take him? And I said, "Yep, absolutely. Let's make it happen." So she calls me the next day when her husband was taking all the cows to auction. And she said, "I have to go to work. I've told my husband I don't want him going." She goes to work, basically finds out that her husband loaded up Everett and sent him to auction. So what did she do? From work, she contacted us. She said, "How quickly can you get to the auction house?" She ended up calling the auction house, finding out the company that had pre-bought this lot of cows, essentially. And she bought Everett back using her husband's checkbook and paid just an astronomical amount of money for this cow. And I always joke in my tours, like, these people are like, there's no way they're still together. They have to be divorced at this point in time. But, now we have this incredibly mild-mannered, gentle, loving soul, and, who currently is raising a calf named Dottie, who was septic. She had an infection that she developed when she was born, probably uptook it, through her navel, and then it got spread throughout her body. And, she had multiple septic joints. Her shoulders are just a mess. And she's, she really struggles with mobility issues. And Everett's just taken her on completely. My 2 Holstein boys were raised by me, so they just have the absolute worst manners. And they're so brutish and so, like, tough boys, and everything is a play toy with them. And I just thought, oh my goodness, like, I don't want to put Dottie in with these boys. Like, they're so rough. Everett has just taken on becoming her protector, and it's just the most beautiful thing. Like, if those 2 boys get headbutting or playing or even look sideways at Dottie, Everett's in there just mooing at them, and he creates a barrier between himself and Dottie. And that we have incredibly cold days and nights here. I mean, it is still a foot of snow on the ground, and we are almost in May. We're talking 40, sometimes 50 below when throughout our winters, and Everett just takes her on, and just creates this warmth and this love for her, and it's just the most beautiful thing. And that's all people need to see. And I am so hopeful that if we can just keep on with what we're doing at these sanctuaries. And half the time, we don't feel seen, and our animals don't feel seen, and we just want to scream and be frustrated. I have to keep believing that these animal stories will be heard, and they're just making the smallest of differences wherever we possibly can. So I don't want to say much more. I don't know what time it is. I hope I didn't ramble too much, but yeah, I'm honored to be here with you guys.
Melissa, how inspiring. Thank you so much for your inspiration and your courage just to do the work that you're doing. It's very, very, very endearing to my heart. I want to say one thing before we bring up our Q&A, because I have to talk about one other little story, and that is Veronica and Samson. Well, Betty and Veronica. Betty and Veronica were in Kansas City, Missouri, and they were on their way to a sale barn to be sold for slaughter. They were a bonded pair, a mother and a daughter. Veronica was the mother, and Betty was her daughter. And Betty and Veronica both jumped off the truck somehow onto the highway. And an animal rights activist, got wind of it, and the news got wind of it. Helicopters started chasing Betty and Veronica. We're going to get them back, get them on that truck, take them to the cell barn. Well, Betty and Veronica, when they jumped off the cell barn truck, were not Betty and Veronica. They were cattle. They were just considered, chattel. But they got on the news. And when they got on the news, they got the names Betty and Veronica. So now everybody that saw them knew them. And by God, they were cheering for Betty and Veronica, whether they were a vegan or not. And so Betty and Veronica got apprehended, and they got taken to the cell barn. And this animal rights activist contacted me because he had tried all over to get somebody to take Betty and Veronica. He was going to go buy them himself from the cell barn and get them to safety. Well, when he called us, because of our story, I bought my husband's cattle from him. I didn't know that there was even a thing like that 11 years ago, when he was going to send them all to the cell barn. I said, by God, you take those cows up the road one more time, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to buy every one of them back with your credit card and bring them all back home. I said, so you just try me and you watch. I'm going to do that. Well, I didn't end up having to do that because I did a fundraiser and bought them all anyway. But anyway, the fact of the matter is, there's a gray line. A lot of activists think, no, you shouldn't buy animals. But once they become someone, there's a little gray area. And so this animal rights activist, contacted us and wanted to know if we would take Betty and Veronica. And I told him we can't purchase them. But if you can figure out a way to get them animals to safety and get them out of that cell barn, you can consult with my husband. And if you can figure out a way, we will take Betty and Veronica. Well, he did. He consulted with my husband on how to go to a cell barn and buy an animal. And he bought Betty and Veronica. We got them transported, or he did, got them transported to Rowdy Girl. And do you know Veronica was pregnant? Veronica had a baby. His name is Samson. And they would have been sold to slaughter, and Samson would have been slaughtered in utero. And that happens every moment of the day in this industry. So I just wanted to share that brief story. And thank you both panelists so much. You just shared an amazing, amazing journey. And now we've got some folks I know that want to ask some questions. So should I just call them up? Is that what you want me to do? We've got...
That would be great. Shankar, did you want to come up for a question? And we will just let our tech team bring them up one at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Sure. Here I have another person who has joined from India. It is 12 a.m. She's a newbie vegan, but she's running a sanctuary. She's kind of exploring everything. Her name is Narayani. I'm asking her to come on video and ask to unmute. And if she's not joined it, probably I'll ask Nancy to go ahead. Nancy, in the meantime, you can go ahead. Yeah, I'm waiting for Narayani to... I think she's here.
Yes, she's here. She's here.
She's here. Yeah, I'm trying to pin her.
I just want to apologize in advance that at some point soon I will just disappear because I have another event starting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So welcome, Narayani. she has a I want to say she runs a sanctuary and she has a cow which she showed a few weeks back, 30 years old. Unfortunately, it passed away, but she was telling it's like the grandma cow in the sanctuary. It takes care of the cow, even knows when Narayani is sad. So I will let her to explain. Welcome, Narayani.
10 days before we lost our twin mother of our sanctuary.
Okay. So she has 13 plus cows and they take care of 20 plus stray dogs. She has a farm, also a house. And that's her full time. She takes a nap only like 3 or 4 hours a day. And she's always in the farm to make sure they are all okay. And she's working, she goes rescues, and people come and hand over the cows to her. And she can't take everything, but she does assess the situation. And she's in South India, and veganism is all a little bit new to her. So, but she's trying to understood. Vegan people are coming forward and supporting her. She likes that, and she's keeping in her circle. She's implementing all the veganism everything, and she knows personally. Yeah, and I just want if you guys could give a words of encouragement to Narayani, it'll be amazing. Yeah.
Quick question. Hi. Yes. First of all, thank you all. Your stories are just so riveting. And I went vegan around the same time Renee did, and I have a very distinct memory of coming across her profile on Facebook, and I was just, what? A rancher's wife went vegan? What? It was so exciting. I was a newbie. And so anyway, and I just love everything you're all doing. It's incredible. I have a question for Patrice, or maybe Melissa too, but in conversations when we refer to animals we don't know, which is quite often, we don't know their gender, and we want to avoid calling them it because we know that makes them into objects. Now, conventional vegan wisdom would be saying, he or she, but what terms do you recommend to avoid limiting our pronouns to just he or she, or because that perpetuates the ignorance of acknowledging only she or he. And I also want to know, have you seen animals that would be LGBTQ in what you've observed? I know you mentioned the 2 ducks or chickens that were boyfriends, and I would imagine the same kind of things happen in the animal world that happen with us. So that's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, there are hundreds of species of animals in which same-sex partnerships, parenting, courtship, pair bonding, and sex occur. Hundreds and hundreds. There are quite a few books about that. We've been working on that angle, we call it queering animal liberation, for literally decades now. And you can find a lot about it on our website. As for referring to animals whose sex we don't know, we just say they, which I, as a non-binary person, very much appreciate.
That is also similar to the terminology we use. We say they, or I'll try to use very gentle language that is endearing as well. Like, who is this little sweetheart, or just terms of endearment when I'm referring to an animal that, I don't know the sex of. It just, for me, again, just views them. Sometimes I even just say, who's this person? Just trying again to find those parallels for us.
Your question, Dolly?
Yes, thank you all for everything that you do. And I'll never forget, meditation led me to veganism. And I used to meditate at a tree, and I asked the tree to send a sanctuary, close by. And soon then I met Renee, and I called Renee. This was like 14 years ago. And Renee talked to me for, 45 minutes. And I got to see Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. And, a lot of us see cows, they're sad and they have anxiety and fear. But at Rowdy Girl, you see them run. And I've never seen cows run so beautifully. And, all the animals are taken such good care of. And, my eyes live in Renee. She's my hero. She means everything to me. Congratulations on your book.
Thank you, darling.
And all of you doing sanctuary work is God's work. And I just want to say I love you and I appreciate you all.
Thank you, Dolly.
Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, hi guys. Hey everybody. So great to be here. I love this segment, as I've loved all of them, but Patrice just had to go, but I just enjoy connecting with other people in the LGBT community. It's great to I'm one of the T's in that community, kind of non-binary, but viewed in the straight world because I have a girlfriend. And anyway, it's interesting, the intersections of human life and our life with other creatures. I just love how you guys are all connecting, and I love learning about other sanctuaries. And I wanted to thank Nayana too, if I got her name right, in India. I'm so glad you're here and doing what you're doing and connecting with all of us. And I don't know what I could say to encourage you, but I'm just really grateful for what you're doing. And I love what Patrice said too about you could have a sanctuary in your own backyard, because I've had a dream of either working on a sanctuary or having one someday. And maybe I was thinking too big, like I don't know how to care for large animals, or I don't have land myself, or, money or whatever. And I just love what she said, because I was like, yeah, I can make a little habitat, just quit mowing the grass and let the prairie grass come back, create habitat for the small animals, have the agroforestry and the butterfly garden and all these things. So I'm going to work on that in my own little space, and just glad to be here, and want to say thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Dakota.
Thanks, Dakota. And I would like to just respond to you really quickly. I think just that recognition that you can do something to help the creatures around you. In fact, I am a huge advocate often how not to start a farm animal sanctuary, because I do find that people just want to dive right in, and they want cows and they want chickens and they want everything. And what happens a year down the road, they don't exist anymore. And then we get all their animals. So I think the most responsible, conscious thing that you can do as an advocate who wants to make change, who wants to have a sanctuary one day, is just really know where you're at and what your resources and your capacity is. And the most responsible thing you can do is start by helping your pollinators and your insects and the wild birds and get a feeling of what all is involved. And then maybe one day you're in a place where you can have a couple animals. So you start with a flock of chickens, and then you add and you grow. That is how sanctuaries like ours are born. We started with a couple potbelly pigs. That is it. That was over 13 years ago on 4.5 acres of land. Now, 13 years ago, we just purchased 80 acres. We have over 200 animals in our care, and every day we're growing. But it's about creating something for yourself that is sustainable and that's responsible, for yourself and for the animals that you are going to be caring for. So start small. It is the way.
I couldn't have said that any better. I tell you what, I spent a lot of time doing the exact same thing, Melissa.
Yeah.
Because so many sanctuaries that were here, 10, 11 years ago, 5 years ago, they're not here anymore.
They're gone.
They're gone. And guess who gets the animals, like Melissa said?
Yeah. And you're not helping anybody. No one.
It's really it's a burden. It's a hardship.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you, Dakota.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Dakota.
Thank you. This has been an amazing panel. Oh my gosh, I could feel the energy and the emotion and the truth and the gift of sharing other beings with people, so that it's like Ashley Capps says about poetry, it does its own work. Well, the animals do their own work by realizing that they're sentient beings that have this love and connection and innate desire and ability to protect and to nurture and to heal. Thank you for bringing that forth. And Renee, you're always such an amazing host. And We just really appreciate the work you're doing. Keep an eye out for Renee's book that's going to be published soon.
This is the cover.
Howdy, girl.
Yeah, this
It's
is
so
the
you.
advanced. This is the advanced
Nice.
reader copy. It's not the actual, but yeah, that's what's to come.
In June, I know, Renee, we've been talking for a year, and you've been saying it's almost done for about a year. I get that with in the book industry, and you found a publisher. I remember that stage when you were looking for a publisher. Melissa, I am so excited to meet you in person on Mother's Day. We're going to be part of Melissa's Mother's Day gathering there. And if you haven't yet, please go to calfandcow.org and register your events so that we can submit your event, so we can share that. And that's what we're going to be talking about next when the Million Vegan Grandmothers come up. And if you identify as a Million Vegan grandmother, which means that you do not have to be a grandmother, you just are part of the grandmother movement, we would invite you to come up for our next panel as we share story and talk about Mother's Day and expanding that circle of compassion to include the mothers and babies of all species and their homes. So thank you, our guests, and we will bring up our grandmothers. So if you could raise your hand if you're a grandmother. Renee, I think you're one of our grandmothers. I think you're supposed to stay.
I can't though. I've got somebody here.
Thank you, Renee. We will see you
so
soon.
much. Thank you.
In the early morning quiet, when the fields are breathing slow, there's a mother calling softly for the child she came to know. We took her milk, we took her baby, called it custom, called it need. But the earth remembers every bond we break to feed our greed. Bring the cows back to their mothers, bring the milk back to the young. Let no baby be taken before their life's begun. Bring them home to their mothers, let their bodies tell the truth. What was made for loving was never ours to use. She knows him by his breathing, by the sound beneath his cry, by the way the dawn is shining in his dark and liquid eyes. This is more than instinct speaking, more than nature's simple way. This is a love that crosses species, older than the word away. Bring the cows back to their mothers, let the circle still be whole. What is taken breaks the planet, what is love restores the soul. Bring them home to their mothers, let compassion be our guide. Every child beside their mother, every mother with her child. I have walked where moose give birth, where the cows lay down to calve. Placenta on the forest floor, a boundary sacred, raw and vast. I did not belong inside that circle, and she let me know it true. She ushered me back from the forest, from her home, where she belonged, not you. Bring the cows back to their mothers, honor where the birth blood lies. There are laws older than markets, written in the mother's eyes.
This last year, the krill fishery took 650,000 metric tons out of the Southern Ocean. And this is literally taking the food out of the mouths of whales and penguins, seabirds and seals. These species are being severely impacted by the greed of the krill fishery.
And out beyond the breaking waves, where the great blue mothers roam, there are calves beneath the surface, learning oceans as their home. We reach deep for a tiny body, scoop the krill from living seas. But that food was made for mothers and the young they hold and feed. Leave the krill for ocean mothers, leave the Let the whales and gentle giants raise their babies strong and sound. Bring them home to their mothers, land and ocean, hoof and fin. When we stop what's not ours to take, the healing can begin. We are waking from a long divided dream, where we fed on domination and called violence routine. Now a wider love is moving through our hands and what we choose. Every meal a sacred promise that no mother has to lose. Beloved, stand beside me with your feet upon the ground. Let our lives be living answers, let protection make it sound. This is how the world turns gentle, this is how the old ways end. When we choose the mother-child bond again and again and again. Bring the cows back to their mothers, let the mothers keep their.
It's a tiny bit less than 80 acres. I have Jersey cows, Holstein cows, a yak.
She estimates she's rescued about 158 cows.
And most cows don't get to live like this. It makes me happy.
Tack Writer says she got to know cows working at a dairy farm in 1976.
The cows were just wonderful, and when they stopped making milk, they got slaughtered.
She decided to create the sanctuary after tragedy struck.
Huge storm, and I found all these dead cows in the field. The first cows I had were the 6 babies that survived the lightning storm.
She wrote a children's book about that experience, with proceeds benefiting the nonprofit, which she runs herself.
We feel entitled to artificially inseminate a cow, and when she gives birth, we steal her baby. Even though her cries of anguish are unmistakable,